Welcome to the Saturate Podcast. My name is Brad Watson, and today we're going to continue our series on rhythms, talking with my wife as we share how we live into the rhythm of Sabbath. How do we work 6 days, rest 1 day, keep it holy, and how is that actually missional? So really excited for this conversation to share that with you all. Before we dive in, just want to let you know this is some of your last chance days to get the Gospel Basics for Kids for 25% off. You can get that on Amazon or on the Saturate website. At the bare minimum, you should go check it out. It's full of great videos, songs, etc., etc. We love this resource. We want to see it in the hands of as many churches, many leaders as we possibly can. So make sure you go check that out this month. And without anything else to say, let's jump into today's episode.
This is the Saturate Podcast. Saturate is committed to seeing a gospel movement happen in North America and beyond, in which every man, woman, and child have a daily encounter with Jesus in word and deed. This podcast is an ongoing conversation with disciples and leaders growing in the gospel and growing in living the implications of the gospel in community and on mission.
We're right back, continuing our series on rhythms. It's great to have you back, babe.
I'm always here, you know.
Right. You're actually the most difficult person to schedule.
Oh my gosh.
You're in such high demand. It's true.
Stop.
No, it is. It's funny. I always thought we live together, so it'll be easy to find a time to record.
And now you're like, I should ask Sarah Parker to schedule.
Yes, exactly. The person that Sarah, who's so great, she's like the superhero behind the scenes of Saturate, schedules all of my podcasts. And now I'm like, yes, I need her. I need to send an email to her and you to schedule these. But thanks for joining again. And on this whole series, it's been really beneficial. We've talked about blessing, we've talked about listening, we've talked about eating, and today we're going to talk about Sabbath. Sabbath might seem like a weird missional, gospel intentional rhythm, but it's actually really important. And while eating is my favorite, Sabbath is my biggest struggle. Wouldn't you say?
It's very true.
One of the things before we dive into it on this rhythm is it comes from the commandments, the 10 commandments. Yeah. You know, it begins with worship no other gods except for me, don't have idols. And then the third command, I really hope, because now I'm afraid that that's not the third command, but I think the third command is remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. And then it's the longest commandment, there's a whole paragraph about how you're supposed to, 6 days you shall work and 1 day you should rest. And then talks then about the animals, the fields, the servants, everyone should rest, but everyone should also work 6 days, which is amazing. And so this rhythm is kind of about 6 days, like the commandment. We should work. We should be fruitful. We should do whatever responsibilities God's given us. We should do them to the best of our abilities. And that's a way of being missional. But then also taking 1 day to rest, enjoy God, enjoy the reality that we don't have to be on mission for God to continue his mission. And so that's what this rhythm is all about. Yeah. So for you, Mirela, what does that look like?
I think it's hard because part of my responsibilities currently include staying home with the kiddos. And I mean, it's not like my responsibilities go away on the Sabbath. I can't be like, no kids, I'm not going to get your food ready today because it's the Sabbath. So
right.
I can't do that. So I think the challenge with that is then what does it look like to Sabbath when you have little kids? Or maybe not little kids, but when you just have those sorts of responsibilities that don't necessarily go away during, a day off, technically off. And I think for me, what I have try to act on. It's more of this understanding of not be so consumed by the tasks of keeping 3 humans alive. And instead of that sort of consuming me, maybe take the time to enjoy God and enjoy them. So some of the things that has helped our family is to either enjoy our house, just enjoy where we are and spend time with one another. And I think especially you playing Legos with the kids, you'll love that. Or if I am baking something, they kind of tag along and try to make that fun. But also getting out of the house and going on day trips, which might sound really exhausting when you have little kids, but I think it actually becomes a really intentional rest. Where for us here in LA, we can just drive like 20 minutes and we're at the beach, and that's really simple and easy, and the kids can run around and have fun. We can watch them run around and have fun, or build sandcastles, or get our toes wet in the water. And so I think those things have been helpful for us. Also, going to a place that we haven't been to before as a family, that's usually something that I think helps us disconnect a bit from the day-to-day responsibilities, so-called work. There is a lot of talk with technology and what do we do with iPhones and, screen time on your Sabbath. And I do think it's very helpful to be unplugged for more than just one day of the week. But I'm not really good at that. So I'm not going to say you should do that. I do think it's really important, and I want to grow in that. I want to be able to not be so glued to my phone. So I think just trying to spend time with God and more of like this acknowledgement that the day is for Him and for us to worship Him as a family and recognize Him as a family. And so
I think that that's key. I think that for me, that work and then rest rhythm, like working hard, even like pursuing the mission of God and all the things we've talked about already in this series of thinking about other people, listening to them, blessing them, having people over for meals. I think it's that doing that and then resting. It's so important for me because it reminds me, oh, God is on mission to me. Like God is pursuing me. Like that pause to like listen to His voice for a whole day, and to realize that the mission of God is going on without me. I think that in work and in the work of mission every day, we can make ourselves bigger and bigger and more important. The Sabbath is God's gift to us to remember He is the Holy One of God. We aren't. He cares. He's concerned. Also, like right now we're looking out over a huge chunk of the city from our house, and it's like God is in charge of that mission, not us. I would say that's what's so good about it for me. I would say the challenge, though, is it just feels like there's always stuff to do. And there's always an opportunity or a person or a meeting or some preparation to do for the week that kind of interjects. And I think that what we're describing is taking a rest from the mission for the sake of mission, like taking time out where we, as you were saying, just enjoy God for who He is, which looks like praying or reading the scriptures or being quiet, having that kind of rest and solitude. But also a lot of times, like what you're describing as well, involves doing fun things like recreating, like camping or beach or hiking, or even fun things like movies and museums and exploring new parts of town. And like as you were saying, for me personally too, like building Legos, which people might think is work or lame for a 33-year-old. But the other thing that, like, last Friday, which is our Sabbath, I got up, we had breakfast as a family, Nora went to school, and then I went out into our backyard and I worked on it all day until like 4:00. And I was having the time of my life. So spiritual. It was such a gift of grace to me. And I think that Chris Gonzalez, one of our friends, his pastor, Missio Dei Phoenix, they are even the ones that introduced us into this acronym, BLESS. But one of the things that he says is that Sabbath, if you spend your work week working with your hands, on the Sabbath, you should probably take a break with your hands and use, like, read or engage your mind. If your work is all mental, then on the Sabbath, you should probably take a break from that and do something with your hands. As I've reflected more on that, it's just so true. Like, I spend most of my time in some sort of intellectual idea world. And so working with my hands is really important. I'd also say most of my work is super relational too. So I spend many days, 4 or 5 hours in meetings, many days doing podcasts for hours, talking to people, teaching something. Like Tuesday nights, we have this seminary class I teach. And so for me also, Sabbath has to look like a disengagement also from relationships. Whereas I think a lot of other people they spend most of their work kind of in a silo, just like plugging away and not very relational at all. And so for the Sabbath, they need to engage relationships. And so I think what you're saying is we're not experts. So what we're saying to do doesn't fit everyone, but the keys of enjoying God and resting from being the person driving everything forward is key.
I think of something that Zach Aswine shared at the national retreat in January. He was talking about how he was at his kids' basketball game, I think, and someone was calling him, had this crazy emergency, and needed him right away. And he was like, well, I'm right now at my son's basketball game. Then I have to take him home and put him to bed. And tomorrow I have these things already planned. I'm available, in 2 days at 10 a.m. I would love to meet with you. And the person was very offended by his answer. And all he could say was, I'm sorry. I can't. I'm at my son's basketball game. And I love that because, one, what he's saying is your situation, as hard and difficult as it is, I'm not the answer to it. I want to help you and I want to walk with you through it, but your health or getting better or fixing the problem doesn't require for me to drop everything and attend to your need right now. And he made himself available to the person and he told him, this is when I can. But the person was deeply offended because they wanted him right away. Yeah. And I think with ministry, that can be so, such a lie that we believe. That if we say no to somebody, if we say, I can't meet with you right now, I'm sorry, their life is ruined forever and God's never going to do anything. And that is this like savior complex that I think we have, honestly, both with believers and non-believers. And so I think having that freedom to say, I can't meet with you right now, but this is when I'm available and I would love to hear what's going on then. It allows for you to, one, realize that the world does not rely on your shoulder and really you are not king of it all. There's a higher king, that is Jesus. And two, it really forces us to have to say no to things and have to somehow rest. And I think that's really good. Yeah. I often think about that because in our desire to want to help people and be with people and participate in their lives, we can put ourselves in a position that doesn't belong to us. Right. And when we say, okay, yes, I will meet your need right now, we're just emphasizing that. Right. and not really acknowledging that God is God and that, he asks us to rest. And so we should do that.
Totally. And hopefully we're in this for a marathon, for a long time, not a sprint, just like, I just want to get let's try this living intentionally while we're in our, 30s. And then after that, we're done. Or let's just do it this 1 year. Something it's like God is calling us into a lifetime of stewardship, learning, and walking in the way of Jesus. And built into that is taking rest and resting in his goodness, receiving the gospel for yourself on an intentional day so that you can then live each day attuned to his voice. One of the things Eugene Peterson talked about because he passed away was, it is so sad. He would talk about how on the Sabbath, he would remember what God's voice sounds like so he can hear God's voice throughout the week. So it's like, oh, right, that's what the Spirit sounds like. That's the gospel. That's the truth about God. Now, in all of these conversations that I have with people, all of these meals that I have, all of these opportunities to serve and bless, you can hear the voice of God. I think it's actually a profound part of being Spirit-led is doing the Sabbath. And I think this whole conversation always makes me think of that episode of The Office where Michael hits Meredith with a car. She ends up getting rabies. And so he sets up this 5K run for the cure. And he's so into it. And right before the run, he eats all of this fettuccine pasta. And then he runs the race. And all along, there's these water stations. And they're like, drink water. And then he goes, no. People with rabies don't get to drink water. So I'm not going to. And he keeps running. And then, of course, at the end, he's unbelievably sick and makes it all about himself. And he's kind of like, I did this. And it's no longer about the mission of curing rabies, which is already cured. But it's just him. It's like the spectacle and the hero of himself having done this whole run with fettuccine and without drinking water. And I think that's me so much. I'm Michael Scott in that scenario. And I think that's why I need the Sabbath, not just to refuel and get water, but also I think, as you were saying, the tendency is to make the mission or make ministry or even make our jobs or our roles in life all about ourselves. And I think that it's just so important if we want to be, because we want to live for a while as long as God has us. And I don't want to be burned out at 40 or 50. I'd love to be one of those people. A lot of people get missional fatigue is real because we make the mission about ourselves or about metrics, or we have this urgency that isn't what the Spirit gives us in terms of seeing results, and we look for fruit in all the wrong places. And this rhythm of Sabbath is actually given to us as a way of enjoying God and being reminded of the truth.
Yeah, and I think too, we live in such I don't know, I feel like there are many more people now that are their own bosses. The entrepreneurial spirit seems to be more alive now than before, it feels like. And our schedules can enslave us, or that idea that we wanted to have it launched can be so oppressing. Or, social media, am I doing enough marketing? Or I need to do these. And I think, I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't run a company, so I don't want to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. But I would imagine that it is really difficult to tune off. I know that when we're helping Blend Bread and Wine, it was hard to tune off the things that needed to be done or what we wanted to see happening. And so I think you have to sometimes put yourself in a place where you are forced to not think about something, to not talk about something, and to actually think about something else and talk about something else. And so I think whatever it is that helps you do that, if it's going on a hike or exercising or reading a book or building planter boxes or building Legos or whatever it is that will help get your mind off of that one thing that you feel so consumed by during the week. And it's usually if it is your company, it's also closely attached to your identity, which that's a whole nother ball game. But just something that helps remind you that if you don't think about that thing, it will still exist, or the ball will continue to move, or it is okay to take a break and to allow yourself to take a break and to focus on Jesus and on the one that has given you breath and life and ideas and the ability to think and network and all of those things, and recognize and acknowledge and praise him for that. Focusing not on the things that you have to do, but on the things that God has already done.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I think the end result is actually not just endurance, but also focus and clarity. You walk away with the clarity on how to go about your next week and who's important. Like even it's in those moments of Sabbath rest and solitude and thinking about God and enjoying our children and enjoying our home, enjoying God's creation, that we kind of realize, oh yeah, this is the conversation I need to have. This is the person I need to pursue. Those ideas all just kind of flood in on Monday morning when we're coming to the mission from a place of rest. I think the last sort of thing practically is we're kind of weird because Sundays are a huge work. I mean, we're weird for many reasons, you and I, but we're strange ones. Sorry to break it to you, babe, but you're unique. But for us, Sundays are a day of work. It'd be cool if that wasn't the case, if as a pastor family, Sundays are days of labor. And so we Sabbath on Fridays, but something that I do like encourage people to like, how do you make a Sabbath focused on God? I think some people can't Sabbath on Sundays. That's a real thing, but I just encourage people to gather with the saints and worship Jesus and be reminded of the true story, be reminded of your calling and your identity and the goodness of the gospel. Take and eat communion meal. Like doing those things is the way of like launching you into a day of rest and recreation, focusing on him and what he's about, enjoying the community of God. Like it's just, I don't know, that's a gift that many people have at their disposal. And I just want to encourage people not to forsake the gathering with the saints. And that's even a massive lead in.
Yeah. And I think even as you work on Sunday, it is such a joy to be with the body of Christ. It is refreshing. And I know for you, it feels more like work, but.
Well, it's normally exciting. I'm normally pretty hyper for a little bit and then I crash. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that definitely can be such a refresher for me. And I was going to say too, for us, our oldest goes to school. So on Friday, she's in home. So we try to make Saturday our family day where we try to not do any sort of sports or extracurricular activities and stuff like that. It's not a law. It's just something that we've been trying to do, mostly because it is really the only day that we have everyone together and we don't have any sort of quote unquote responsibilities. And so we try to do that on Saturday. And I think Friday, you and I try to kind of tag team to get a little break. So you were working in the garden all day and I went out. And so I think that really helps just to keep our minds clear and to be able to connect with God. And for me, I love my kids, but I love my alone time, and I don't get that much these days. And so just to be able to have, even if it's just for 3 or 4 hours of alone time, where I don't have anyone asking me to play Mary Poppins in the car or whatever. It's just, I don't know, selfishly. It's good, and it helps me tune into God without all the other interruptions that usually happen in my day-to-day life. So
yeah, I think we tag team so much to get there. And the last thing I'd say that I've learned in this is creating like full, like big picture rhythms of rest. So I don't remember when we learned this or thought about this, but having daily moments of rest, like what are the times where you get to rest? Standing on the back porch and just taking a few deep breaths and praying for the day. Like there should be daily moments of rest, weekly moments of rest, like a Sabbath as we're talking about, and even just annual moments of rest too, where you don't even have to be that rich in this country to take a vacation of some kind and to take a few days away as a family and to completely disengage. And that's another thing that we try to pursue. And it's something we've been given. Most people have days off, but what makes it, in the series we're talking about, intentionally living everyday life, is how do you, as the people of God, God calls us to even seize that day off with intentional focus on Him and His kingdom and to rest in His goodness. And so that's what we're talking about. We have a Saturate resource on Sabbath itself, like helping you plan through, step into that journey for the first time, even building a biblical reality for that. So make sure you check out that. It's a resource called Sabbath Rest. And thanks, babe, for joining in on this series.
Welcome.
Bless this place. You've blessed us in Jesus. Help us